In the year 2147, Earth was a planet of unmatched power and technological brilliance. Humanity had stretched its reach far beyond the blue skies, colonizing distant planets and moons. The people of Earth lived in a time of confidence, believing they had conquered every challenge the universe could throw at them. At the heart of this belief stood two figures, Commander Jack Harper and Lieutenant Laura Bennett. Both were veterans of countless battles, their names spoken with respect across military circles. They had seen conflict up close, leading troops through simulations and real-world skirmishes alike. To them, combat was a science, something that could be broken down, analyzed, and perfected. Jack was a tall man with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude. His hair was cropped short and his piercing gray eyes seemed to miss nothing. Laura, on the other hand, was smaller but carried herself with quiet strength. Her dark hair was always tied back neatly, and her calm demeanor masked a fierce determination. Together, they made an unstoppable team. Their victories were celebrated as proof that humanity's dominance over the stars was inevitable. But all of that changed one fateful morning. It started like any other day. Jack and Laura were stationed aboard the Eclipse, a state-of-the-art warship orbiting Earth. The Eclipse was sleek and powerful, bristling with advanced weaponry and cutting-edge technology. Its crew moved about their duties with practiced efficiency, secure in the knowledge that they were part of the greatest fighting force humanity had ever assembled. Outside the ship's thick windows, Earth hung in the blackness of space. Jewel suspended in the void. Then, without warning, the alarms blared. "Commander," shouted Ensign Paul Carter from his station. "We've got multiple unidentified objects entering Earth's orbit." Jack strode to the main console, his boots clicking against the metal floor. On the screen before him, dozens of massive ships appeared out of nowhere, their shapes unlike anything he had ever seen. They were long and sinuous, almost organic in appearance, with glowing veins running along their hulls. Each vessel pulsed faintly, as if alive. Jack felt a chill run down his spine, though he didn't show it. "What are they?" Laura asked, standing beside him. Her voice was steady, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. "We don't know yet," Jack replied. "Hail them." The communications officer tried repeatedly to establish contact, but the aliens, later nicknamed the Krylos, did not respond. Instead, they simply hung there in orbit, silent and unmoving. Tension mounted aboard the Eclipse as hours passed. No one knew what to make of these strangers. Were they explorers, traders, or something far more dangerous? Finally, Earth's leaders decided to send a diplomatic envoy. A small shuttle carrying ambassadors and scientists departed from the International Space Station, heading toward one of the largest alien ships. Jack and Laura watched anxiously as the shuttle approached its target. For a moment, it seemed like peace might be possible. Then, without warning, the Krylos ship unleashed a devastating beam of energy, obliterating the shuttle in an instant. The reaction was immediate. Earth declared war. Jack and Laura were ordered to lead the first strike against the invaders. With grim determination, they prepared the Eclipse for battle. The crew worked tirelessly, arming missiles, charging lasers, and plotting attack vectors. Jack addressed the crew over the intercom, his voice firm and reassuring. "This is our home," he said. "We will defend it with everything we have." As the Eclipse moved into position, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Krylos ships remained eerily still, as if waiting. When the order came to fire, the humans launched their assault with precision. Missiles streaked through space, followed by beams of concentrated light. But instead of explosions or damage, the Krylos ships dodged every shot with impossible speed and agility. It was as if they could predict exactly where the attacks would land. Laura stared at the screens in disbelief. How are they doing that? Before anyone could answer, the Krylos retaliated. Strange projectiles erupted from their vessels, twisting and shifting mid-flight. The human fleet scrambled to evade, but it was useless. The alien weapons homed in unerringly, bypassing shields and tearing through armor. One by one, Earth's ships fell, their crews screaming as they were consumed by flames. Jack clenched his fists as he watched the chaos unfold. "Fall back," he shouted. "Regroup." The surviving ships, including the Eclipse, limped away from the battlefield, battered and humiliated. Back on Earth, news of the defeat spread quickly, plunging the planet into panic. Governments convened emergency meetings, scrambling to come up with a plan. Meanwhile, Jack and Laura sat in stunned silence aboard the Eclipse, replaying the battle in their minds. "They're not like anything we've faced before," Laura murmured finally. "They didn't just beat us, they crushed us." Jack nodded slowly. "We thought we understood combat. We thought we were ready for anything, but those things, they're playing by rules we don't even comprehend." For the first time in his career, Jack felt truly afraid. He had always believed in humanity's ability to overcome any obstacle. Now, staring into the abyss of the unknown, he wasn't so sure. The Krylos had proven themselves to be an enemy unlike any other, an adversary that defied logic and reason. And they weren't done yet. As the Eclipse drifted silently in space, the weight of the situation settled heavily on everyone aboard. Earth's defenders had been humbled, their pride shattered. But deep down, Jack knew one thing for certain. Giving up was not an option. Humanity would have to learn, adapt, and fight harder than ever before. Because if they didn't, the Krylos would make them suffer, and the suffering would never end. The war had only just begun. After the disastrous first encounter with the Krylos, Earth was in chaos. News of the defeat spread like wildfire, igniting fear and panic across the planet. People crowded into streets, shouting questions no one could answer. Governments held emergency meetings, but their leaders were just as confused and frightened as everyone else. The Krylos had shown they were not interested in negotiation or mercy. Their silence was deafening, their intentions unclear. All anyone knew for certain was that humanity's days of dominance were over, if they didn't find a way to fight back. Commander Jack Harper and Lieutenant Laura Bennett returned to Earth aboard the Eclipse, their faces grim. The ship's crew moved quietly, weighed down by the crushing failure of their mission. Back at command headquarters, Jack and Laura stood before a room full of generals, scientists, and politicians. The air was thick with tension as they replayed footage from the battle. Every frame showed the same horrifying truth. The Krylos were faster, smarter, and more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced. "They're not machines, Dr. Emily Carter said, finally breaking the silence. She was a xenobiologist, one of the few experts on alien life forms. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she pointed to the screen. "Look at how they move. Look at their ships. They're alive, or at least part of them is." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" Emily took a deep breath. "I think the Krylos are a hybrid species. Part organic, part synthetic. Their ships aren't just vessels. They're extensions of their bodies. That's why they can adapt so quickly. It's not technology, it's biology." The room fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. Humanity had always assumed its enemies would be like them, mechanical, logical, predictable. But the Krylos were something entirely different. They were predators, creatures that relied on instinct and adaptation rather than rigid strategies. Laura leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "If that's true, how do we fight them? We can't outthink them and we can't outmaneuver them. What's left?" Emily hesitated. "We need to understand them better. Study their behavior, their weaknesses. Right now we're fighting blind." Before anyone could respond, an officer burst into the room. His face was pale and he clutched a tablet tightly in his hands. "Sir, we've received reports from the outer colonies. The Krylos are attacking everywhere. Mars, Europa, Titan. Entire fleets are being wiped out. They're advancing toward Dao. Earth faster than we expected." The room erupted into panicked voices. Jack raised his hand, silencing them. "Enough," he said firmly. "Panicking won't help us. We need a plan, and we need it now." Over the next few days, Jack and Laura worked tirelessly to devise a strategy. They pored over data from the first battle, searching for any clue that might give them an edge. Laura spent hours talking to the surviving crew members, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. One name kept coming up: Private Alex Monroe. A young soldier who had barely escaped with his life, Alex had witnessed the Krylos up close during the retreat. Jack decided to bring him in for questioning. Alex was nervous when he entered the briefing room. He was a wiry man in his mid-20s, with messy brown hair and tired eyes. He sat stiffly in the chair, avoiding eye contact as Jack and Laura sat across from him. "Private Monroe," Jack began, "we need to know everything you saw during the battle. Anything unusual, anything that might help us." Alex nodded slowly. "It's hard to explain, sir. They didn't fight like we do. It wasn't random. They moved in patterns, almost like they were synchronized. And there was this sound, a high-pitched hum, right before they attacked." Laura exchanged a glance with Jack. "A sound?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Like a signal or something. I thought it was my suit malfunctioning at first, but then I realized it came from them. It happened every time they coordinated their attacks." Jack leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. If the Krylos were using some kind of signal to communicate, disrupting it might throw them off balance. It was a long shot, but it was the best lead they had. While Jack focused on planning the next attack, Laura sought solace in conversation with Alex. They often met in the mess hall, sharing meals and discussing ideas. Alex was still haunted by the loss of his squad during the first battle, and Laura could see the guilt eating away at him. She tried to reassure him, reminding him that survival was a victory in itself. "You saved yourself for a reason, Alex," she told him one evening. "You have knowledge they don't. Use it." Her words seemed to lift a weight from his shoulders. Slowly, Alex began contributing more to the planning sessions. He suggested unconventional tactics, drawing inspiration from guerrilla warfare and ancient military texts. Though some dismissed his ideas as too risky, Jack and Laura listened carefully. Desperation was breeding creativity, and they needed every advantage they could get. Meanwhile, Earth prepared for the inevitable invasion. Cities were fortified, evacuation plans were drawn up, and civilians were trained in basic defense. The Q. Skies above Earth filled with drones and mechs, ready to repel the Krylos forces. But despite these efforts, everyone knew the odds were against them. The Krylos had already proven they could bypass Earth's defenses with ease. As the days passed, Jack grew increasingly restless. He couldn't shake the feeling that waiting for the Krylos to come to them was a mistake. "We can't sit here and let them dictate the terms of this war," he told Laura one night. "We need to take the fight to them." Laura nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. "But how? Every engagement so far has ended in disaster. What makes you think another direct assault will work?" "I don't," Jack admitted. "But we can't keep playing defense. We need to learn more about them up close, maybe capture one of their ships." The idea was dangerous, perhaps even suicidal, but it was also their best chance at turning the tide. With little time to spare, Jack and Laura assembled a small elite team for the mission. Alongside Alex, they recruited Chief Engineer Ryan Dawson, a gruff but brilliant mechanic who had served with Jack for years. Together, they boarded a fast attack vessel and set course for a damaged Krylos ship drifting near Jupiter. The journey was tense. Everyone aboard knew the risks, but they also understood the stakes. If they failed, Earth's chances of survival would dwindle to nothing. As they approached the alien vessel, Jack addressed the team over the intercom. "This isn't just a mission," he said. "This is our chance to prove that we're not done yet. Stay sharp, stay focused, and trust each other. We'll get through this, together." The Krylos ship loomed ahead, its surface pulsating faint-wide with an eerie glow. It looked less like a machine and more like a living organism, its twisted form both mesmerizing and terrifying. As the team prepared to board, Laura felt a chill run down her spine. Whatever awaited them inside, she knew it would change everything. For better or worse, the battle for humanity's future was about to enter a new phase. The team approached the damaged Krylos ship with a mix of determination and dread. Commander Jack Harper stood at the helm of their small attack vessel, his eyes fixed on the alien craft ahead. It was massive, its surface covered in pulsating veins that glowed faintly in shades of blue and green. The ship didn't look like it was made of metal or any material humanity had ever encountered. It seemed alive, almost breathing. Laura Bennett sat beside him, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair as she tried to steady her nerves. "Are you ready for this?" Jack asked quietly, glancing at her. Laura nodded but didn't say anything. She wasn't sure if she was ready. None of them were. But they didn't have a choice. If they wanted to stand a chance against the Krylos, they needed answers, and those answers lay inside that monstrous ship. Behind them, Alex Monroe adjusted his helmet nervously. He had seen the Krylos up close during the first battle, and the memory still haunted him. Chief Engineer Ryan Dawson patted him on the shoulder reassuringly. "We've got each other's backs," Ryan said gruffly. "Just stay sharp." As their vessel docked onto the side of the Krylos ship, the team prepared to board. They wore advanced suits equipped with oxygen supplies, scanners, and weapons. Even so, none of them felt truly safe. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. The smell hit them immediately, a mix of something metallic and organic like blood and oil combined. It made Alex's stomach churn. "Stay close," Jack ordered, stepping forward with his weapon raised. The others followed, their footsteps echoing softly in the eerie silence. The walls around them seemed to pulse faintly, as though the ship itself was alive. Strange tendrils hung from the ceiling, writhing slowly like snakes. Every step felt like they were walking deeper into the belly of some colossal beast. "This place gives me the creeps," Alex muttered under his breath. "You're not alone," Laura replied, scanning the area with her rifle. Her voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the tension in her movements. They moved cautiously through the corridors, searching for anything useful. Data, technology, anything that could help them understand the Krylos. Along the way, they found signs of activity. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, shifting and changing as if alive. Ryan stopped to examine one of them, running his scanner over the surface. "These aren't just markings," he said thoughtfully. "They're instructions? Coordinates, maybe?" Before anyone could respond, a low hum filled the air. The same sound Alex had described hearing before the Krylos attacked during the first battle. Everyone froze, their hearts pounding. "They're here," Alex whispered, gripping his weapon tightly. From the shadows, the Krylos emerged. They were tall and insectoid, their bodies covered in chitinous armor that gleamed faintly in the dim light. Their limbs ended in razor-sharp claws, and their heads were elongated with glowing red eyes that seemed to pierce right through the humans. What made them even more terrifying was how they moved. Not stiffly like machines, but fluidly, almost gracefully, as if every motion was calculated and precise. "Hold your ground," Jack shouted, raising his weapon. The team opened fire, their bullets ricocheting off the Krylos' armored exoskeletons. The aliens didn't flinch, advancing steadily despite the barrage. One of them leapt forward with incredible speed, swiping at Ryan with its claws. He barely managed to dodge, falling backward onto the floor. Alex fired repeatedly at the creature, aiming for its glowing eyes. To everyone's surprise, the shots connected, causing the Krylos to stagger momentarily. Its body began regenerating almost instantly, the wound closing as if it had never been there. But the brief pause was enough for Ryan to scramble to his feet. "Got it!" Alex yelled triumphantly. "Aim for the eyes." The team adjusted their tactics, focusing their fire on the aliens' weak points. It worked, at least temporarily. The Krylos faltered, giving the humans a chance to retreat further into the ship. As they ran, Alex noticed something odd about the creatures. Before attacking, they emitted a high-pitched frequency, almost like a signal. It was subtle, but unmistakable. "Jack," Alex called out, pointing at the creatures. "That sound, they're using it to coordinate. Disrupt it and we might slow them down." Jack nodded, understanding immediately. "Ryan, can you rig something to jam that frequency?" "I'll try," Ryan replied, already pulling tools from his pack. "But I'll need time." "We don't have much of that," Laura said grimly, firing over her shoulder as more Krylos appeared behind them. The team barricaded themselves in a narrow corridor, buying Ryan the precious minutes he needed. Jack and Laura took turns covering the entrance while Alex kept an eye on the twisting tendrils above, half expecting them to come alive and attack. The Krylos pressed relentlessly, their claws tearing at the makeshift barriers. Sparks flew as metal screeched and bent under their assault. Finally, Ryan held up a small device. "It's ready," he shouted. "Let's hope this works." Activating the jammer, Ryan aimed it toward the approaching Krylos. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creatures paused, their movements becoming erratic and disjointed. Without their coordination signal, they seemed confused, lashing out blindly. The team seized the opportunity, pushing past them and continuing deeper into the ship. Despite the reprieve, the mission was far from over. The Krylos ship was a labyrinth, its passages twisting unpredictably. Every corner seemed to hold new dangers, more enemies, collapsing tunnels, and strange traps that triggered bursts of acidic liquid or electrical shocks. At one point, Laura nearly fell into a pit filled with writhing, worm-like creatures. Only Alex's quick reflexes saved her, pulling her back just in time. "This place is a death trap," she gasped, clutching her chest as she caught her breath. "And we're still alive," Jack reminded her firmly. "Keep moving." Eventually, they reached what appeared to be the ship's core, a vast chamber dominated by a pulsating orb suspended in midair. Tubes and cables connected it to the walls, feeding it energy. The room was eerily quiet, save for the rhythmic throbbing of the orb. "This has to be important," Ryan said, examining the structure. "If we can disable it, we might cripple the ship." "Do it," Jack ordered. "Fast." Ryan worked quickly, attaching explosives to the base of the orb. The rest of the team formed a defensive perimeter, watching nervously as the Krylos began to recover from the jamming effect. Within minutes, the aliens were regrouping, their coordination returning as they closed in on the chamber. "We're out of time," Laura warned, firing wildly as the Krylos poured into the room. "Almost done," Ryan shouted, sweat dripping down his face. With a final click, the explosives were set. "Let's go," Jack yelled, grabbing Ryan by the arm and dragging him toward the exit. The team sprinted back the way they came, the sound of the Krylos's claws scraping against the floor growing louder with every second. Behind them, the orb exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave rippled through the ship, causing the walls to collapse and the corridors to cave in. The team barely escaped, diving through the airlock just as their stolen vessel detached from the dying Krylos ship. As they sped away, the alien craft imploded, consumed by its own destruction. Exhausted and battered, the team collapsed onto the floor of their ship, gasping for air. They had succeeded, but at a cost. Ryan's suit was torn, exposing part of his leg to the harsh environment of space. Alex had burns on his arms from the explosion, and Laura's hands were trembling uncontrollably. Yet despite their injuries, there was a sense of triumph among them. They had faced the Krylos up close, learned their secrets, and survived to tell the tale. For the first time since the war began, humanity had a fighting chance. Back on Earth, the data recovered from the mission would change everything. But for now, all Jack and his team could do was rest and prepare for the battles yet to come. The team returned to Earth battered but victorious. Their mission to infiltrate the Krylos ship had yielded valuable information, including data on their coordination signals and the inner workings of their biomechanical technology. Dr. Emily Carter, the xenobiologist who had first theorized the Krylos's hybrid nature, worked tirelessly to analyze the findings. Her lab became a hive of activity as scientists and engineers pored over every detail, searching for ways to turn the tide of the war. Using the insights gained from the mission, Emily developed a prototype device called the Harmony Disruptor. It was designed to interfere with the high-frequency signals the Krylos used to coordinate their attacks. In simulations, the disruptor showed promise, temporarily breaking down the aliens' ability to synchronize their movements. But it was untested in real combat, and no one knew how effective it would be against the Krylos on a larger scale. Commander Jack Harper wasted no time preparing for its deployment. He gathered his team aboard the Eclipse, briefing them on the plan. The Harmony Disruptor would be mounted on the ship's hull, broadcasting its jamming signal across a wide radius. If it worked, It could give humanity a critical edge in battle. But there was a catch. Activating the disruptor would leave the ship vulnerable, as the power required to run it would drain resources needed for shields and weapons. "We're going to need volunteers," Jack said, addressing the crew. His voice was steady, but the weight of the decision hung heavy in the air. "This is a suicide mission. If we fail, we won't make it back." To his surprise, nearly everyone stepped forward. Among them was Private Alex Monroe, whose confidence had grown since the infiltration mission. He stood alongside Lieutenant Laura Bennett, Chief Engineer Ryan Dawson, and dozens of others who refused to let fear dictate their actions. One new face stood out, Sarah Mitchell, a young strategist recruited after her innovative ideas caught Jack's attention during planning sessions. Sarah was sharp-witted and resourceful, with a knack for thinking outside the box. She had studied ancient military tactics and combined them with modern technology to propose unconventional strategies. Though inexperienced compared to the veterans, she quickly earned their respect with her determination and quick thinking. As the Eclipse prepared for battle, tensions ran high. The Krylos fleet loomed closer to Earth, its advance relentless. Reports came in from other sectors of space. Colonies were falling, fleets were being annihilated, and panic was spreading. Humanity's last line of defense was crumbling, and all eyes turned to the Eclipse as their final hope. When the order came to engage the enemy, Jack felt a mix of pride and dread. Pride in his crew, who had chosen to stand and fight despite overwhelming odds, and dread at the thought of losing them. As the Eclipse moved into position, the Krylos ship surrounded them like predators circling prey. Their glowing veins pulsed faster, signaling an impending attack. "Activate the disruptor," Jack commanded, gripping the armrests of his chair tightly. The Harmony disruptor hummed to life, emitting a low-frequency pulse that rippled outward. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Krylos ships faltered, their graceful movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. The effect wasn't perfect. The aliens still fought fiercely, but it was enough to give the human forces a chance. Laura led the counterattack, directing the Eclipse's weapons with precision. Missiles streaked through space, finding their marks for the first time. Explosions lit up the void as Krylos ships exploded or drifted helplessly. Cheers erupted aboard the Eclipse, but Jack silenced them with a raised hand. "This isn't over," he reminded them grimly. "Stay focused." Sarah watched the battle unfold from the tactical station, analyzing patterns and identifying weaknesses. Her eyes widened as she noticed something unusual. "Commander," she called out. "Their formations, they're trying to regroup around a central point. If we target that area, we can break their momentum." Jack nodded. "Do it. All weapons, concentrate fire on those coordinates." The Eclipse unleashed everything it had, focusing its firepower on the designated location. The concentrated assault shattered the Krylos' attempts to reorganize, sending their ships scattering in disarray. For the first time in the war, humanity had the upper hand, but the victory came at a cost. The Harmony disruptor drained the ship's energy reserves, leaving its shields dangerously weak. A stray blast from a Krylos vessel struck the Eclipse, causing critical damage to its engines. Alarms blared as smoke filled the corridors, and the crew scrambled to contain the chaos. Ryan rushed to the engine room, his hands moving deftly as he worked to stabilize the systems. Sweat poured down his face as sparks flew around him. "I need more time," he shouted over the noise. "You don't have it," Laura replied, her voice tense. "We're sitting ducks out here." Alex joined Ryan, helping him reroute power to keep the ship operational. Together, they managed to restore partial functionality just as another wave of Krylos ships approached. The disruptor's effects were wearing off, and the aliens were beginning to recover their coordination. "We can't hold them off forever," Jack muttered, his jaw clenched. "Fall back. Get us out of here." The Eclipse limped away from the battlefield, pursued by the Krylos fleet. Only when they entered Earth's atmosphere did the aliens break off their chase, retreating to regroup. The crew collapsed in exhaustion, their bodies bruised and battered but alive. Back on Earth, news of the partial victory spread cautiously. People celebrated cautiously, knowing the war was far from over. The Harmony Disruptor had proven effective, but it was clear that humanity couldn't rely on it alone. The Krylos were still a formidable foe, capable of adapting and evolving. In the aftermath of the battle, Jack and Laura reflected on what had been achieved and what remained to be done. They had shown that the Krylos could be beaten, but only through ingenuity, teamwork, and sacrifice. Sarah emerged as a symbol of hope, her unconventional strategies earning praise from both soldiers and civilians alike. "We've taken a step forward," Laura said quietly, standing beside Jack as they looked out at the damaged eclipse. "But we're not safe yet." "No," Jack agreed, "and we won't be until this war is over. But today we proved something important. We proved that we're not just fighting to survive. We're fighting to win." The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time, humanity had a glimmer of hope. The Krylos had underestimated them, and that mistake would cost them dearly. With each battle, humanity grew stronger, learning to endure and adapt in the face of unimaginable odds. The war was far from over, but the tide had begun to turn. The victory against the Krylos fleet near Earth's atmosphere was a turning point, but it came with heavy costs. The Eclipse had barely survived the battle, its systems pushed to their limits, and its crew exhausted. Repairs were underway, but everyone knew they couldn't afford another fight like that. The Harmony Disruptor had proven effective, but relying on it alone wasn't enough. Humanity needed a decisive strike, one that would cripple the Krylos permanently. "Commander Jack?" Harper stood in the war room staring at a holographic map of known Krylos territories. His mind raced as he considered their options. Intelligence reports suggested that the Krylos operated under a hive mind structure, controlled by a central entity. Destroying this core could sever their coordination and bring the invasion to a halt, but reaching it wouldn't be easy. The Krylos homeworld lay deep within their territory, surrounded by heavily guarded outposts and patrols. "We'll need a small team," Jack said finally, breaking the silence. Lieutenant Laura Bennett, Sarah Mitchell, Alex Monroe, and Chief Engineer Ryan Dawson sat around the table listening intently. "A stealth mission, infiltrate their defenses, locate the core, and destroy it." "It's suicide," Ryan muttered, shaking his head. "Even if we make it past their ships, who knows what's waiting for us down there?" "Maybe," Jack admitted. "But if we don't try, Earth doesn't stand a chance. We've already shown that the Krylos can be beaten. Now we finish the job." Laura nodded slowly. "If anyone can pull this off, it's us. We've been through worse." The team spent days preparing for the mission. They scavenged parts from damaged Krylos ships, building a disguise for their vessel. It looked almost identical to one of the alien craft, complete with glowing veins and pulsating surfaces. The hope was that the Krylos wouldn't recognize them until it was too late. Before leaving, Jack addressed the survivors of the eclipse. "This is humanity's last shot," he told them. "We're not coming back unless we succeed. If you want to stay behind, no one will blame you." To his surprise, nearly everyone volunteered to join the effort. Some stayed behind to repair the eclipse, while others helped outfit the stolen Krylos ship. Among those joining the mission were Sarah and Alex, whose courage and ingenuity had become vital assets. Ryan insisted on coming along, determined, to ensure the ship's systems held up under pressure. As they launched into space, the weight of their task settled over the team. The journey to the Krylos homeworld was long and perilous, taking them through hostile territory filled with enemy patrols. Every jump through hyperspace brought them closer to danger, and to the heart of the Krylos Empire. When they finally arrived, the sight was overwhelming. The Krylos homeworld was unlike anything they had imagined. Its surface was dominated by towering organic structures that pulsed with energy, connected by networks of glowing tendrils. Rivers of molten material snaked across the landscape, feeding into massive pits that glowed faintly in the dim light. The entire planet seemed alive, breathing and shifting as if it were a single organism. "This place is wrong," Alex whispered, staring out the window. "It feels like it's watching us." It probably is, Laura replied grimly. Stay sharp. The team landed on a barren plateau far from the central structures, hiding their ship beneath a camouflage net. Armed with disruptors, rifles, and tools, they set out on foot toward what appeared to be the core of the hive mind, a colossal tower rising from the center of the planet. As they approached, the air grew thick and oppressive, making it hard to breathe even through their suits. Their path led them through twisting tunnels carved into the ground, lined with writhing tendrils that emitted faint hums. Strange creatures skittered in the shadows, their eyes reflecting the dim light. Every step felt like walking deeper into the belly of some monstrous beast. This isn't just a base, Sarah observed, her voice trembling slightly. It's part of them. Everything here is connected. Focus, Jack ordered, though his own unease was evident. We don't have time to think about it. They soon encountered resistance. Small groups of Krylos warriors emerged from the darkness, their movements swift and deadly. Unlike before, these aliens didn't rely on coordination. They fought, individually, driven by instinct. Each encounter was brutal, forcing the team to use every ounce of skill and strategy to survive. During one skirmish, Ryan took a hit to his leg, the impact sending him sprawling to the ground. Alex dragged him to safety while Laura provided cover fire. I'm fine, Ryan growled, gritting his teeth as he patched himself up. Keep moving. Despite the setbacks, they pressed on, inching closer to the central tower. Along the way, Sarah noticed patterns in the tunnels, symbols etched into the walls that repeated at regular intervals. She realized they were directions, guiding them toward the core. Follow these, she instructed, pointing to the markings. They'll lead us straight there. Her discovery saved them precious time, allowing them to avoid several ambushes. But as they neared the tower, the challenges grew more intense. Massive gates blocked their path, requiring Ryan's engineering skills to bypass. Swarms of biomechanical drones attacked relentlessly, forcing the team to fight their way through wave after wave of enemies. Finally, they reached the entrance to the central chamber. The door slid open with a low groan, revealing a cavernous room dominated by a pulsating orb suspended in midair. Tubes and cables radiated outward, connecting it to the walls and floor. The air shimmered with energy, making it difficult to focus. That's it, Jack said, raising his weapon. Destroy it. Before they could act, the Krylos Queen revealed herself. Towering above them, she was a grotesque fusion of organic and synthetic elements, her body covered in chitinous armor and glowing veins. Her elongated head tilted downward, red eyes locking onto the intruders. A telepathic voice echoed in their minds, cold and commanding. You are insignificant, the Queen hissed. Your defiance ends here. Without hesitation, the team opened fire. Bullets and disruptor blasts struck the Queen's body, causing her to stagger momentarily. But like the smaller Krylos warriors, she began regenerating almost instantly, her wounds closing as if they had never existed. We can't kill her directly, Laura shouted. We need to overload the core. Sarah spotted a control panel near the base of the orb. Over here, she yelled, sprinting toward it. Alex and Jack provided covering fire as she worked frantically to interface with the alien system. The Queen lunged at them, her claws slicing through the air mere inches from their heads. Hurry, Jack barked, dodging another attack. I'm trying, Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the controls. The panel sparked and sputtered, resisting her attempts to override it. Finally, with a triumphant shout, she activated the overload sequence. The orb began to glow brighter, its pulsations growing erratic. The Queen let out an ear-splitting screech, lashing out wildly. Tendrils erupted from the walls, wrapping around the team and pulling them toward the orb. Alex grabbed a plasma charge from his belt, igniting it and throwing it at the Queen. The explosion stunned her long enough for the others to break free. Get out of here, Alex shouted, staying behind to hold off the Queen. Finish it! No! Jack yelled, reaching for him. But Alex shoved him away, firing his weapon as the Queen advanced. The chamber began to collapse, debris raining down as the orb destabilized. Jack and the others ran for the exit, their hearts pounding. Behind them, Alex detonated a second charge, engulfing the Queen in flames. The shockwave threw him backward, and he disappeared beneath falling rubble. Tears streamed down Laura's face as they escaped the tunnel, the ground shaking violently beneath their feet. The central tower exploded in a blinding flash of light, sending waves of energy rippling across the planet. The Krylos's hive mind collapsed, severing their connection to the Queen and plunging the Empire into chaos. Back aboard their stolen ship, the team sat in stunned silence. They had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. Alex's sacrifice weighed heavily on all of them, a reminder of the price they had paid for victory. As they prepared to leave Krylos space, Jack stared out at the burning horizon. "We did it," he said quietly. "But we'll never forget what it took." And with that, they turned their ship toward home, carrying both the hope of survival and the scars of war. The journey back to Earth was quiet, filled with a heavy silence that no one dared to break. The team aboard the stolen Krylos ship had survived the impossible, but their victory felt hollow. Alex Monroe's sacrifice weighed on everyone's minds, his absence a constant reminder of the cost of their mission. Commander Jack Harper sat in the cockpit, staring out at the endless void of space. His hands gripped the controls tightly, though the ship was running on autopilot. Lieutenant Laura Bennett sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the floor as she replayed the events of the past days in her mind. Sarah Mitchell and Ryan Dawson were in the main cabin, tending to minor injuries and checking the ship's systems. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she worked, her sharp mind racing with thoughts of what they had just accomplished and what it meant for humanity. Ryan, usually gruff and stoic, seemed unusually subdued. He patched up a tear in his suit, his movements slow and deliberate, as if trying to distract himself from the grief that threatened to overwhelm him. "We did what we had to do," Jack said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Alex knew the risks. He gave everything so we could finish the mission." Laura nodded, though her throat felt tight. "I know, but it doesn't make it easier." "No," Jack agreed. "It never does." The closer they got to Earth, the more the reality of their situation began to sink in. They had destroyed the Krylos Queen, severing the hive mind connection that bound the alien forces together. Reports from the outer colonies confirmed that the remaining Krylos ships had fallen into disarray, retreating or simply shutting down entirely. Humanity had won, but the scars of war would take years to heal. When they re-entered Earth's atmosphere, the sight below was both heartbreaking and hopeful. Cities lay in ruins, their once bustling streets now eerily empty. Billions of people had been displaced, seeking refuge underground or in hastily constructed shelters. Yet amid the devastation, there were signs of resilience. People worked tirelessly to rebuild, their determination shining through even in the darkest moments. The stolen Krylos ship landed at a military base near what was left of New York City. As the team disembarked, they were met with cheers and applause. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike gathered to welcome them home, their faces lighting up with gratitude and relief. For the first time in months, there was a sense of hope in the air. Jack raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "This victory belongs to all of us," he said, his voice firm despite the exhaustion etched into his face. "We've shown the universe that humanity is strong, not because we're perfect, but because we refuse to give up. Today we celebrate. Tomorrow we rebuild." His words resonated deeply, drawing tears from many in the crowd. Among them stood Dr. Emily Carter, who had spent countless hours analyzing the data brought back from the Krylos homeworld. She approached Jack and Laura after the speech, her eyes shining with admiration. "You've done the impossible," she said softly, "but the work isn't over. We still have so much to learn about the Krylos, and about ourselves." Jack nodded. "We'll keep learning, and we'll keep fighting if we have to. But for now, let's focus on healing." In the days that followed, the team was hailed as heroes. Their names were spoken with reverence, their actions immortalized in news broadcasts and history books. Yet none of them sought glory. They understood that their victory had come at a great cost, not just in lives lost, but in the toll it had taken on their own spirits. Sarah emerged as a symbol of hope for the next generation. Her innovative strategies and unwavering determination inspired young soldiers and scientists alike. She spoke openly about the sacrifices made during the war, emphasizing the importance of unity and adaptability in the face of adversity. "We didn't win because we were stronger or smarter," she told a group of cadets during a ceremony. "We won because we learned to work together, to think differently, and to endure when the odds were against us." Ryan returned to engineering, pouring his grief into his work. He helped design new technologies based on the data recovered from the Krylos, ensuring that humanity would never be caught off guard again. Though he rarely spoke of Alex, those who knew him could see the pain lingering in his eyes. Slowly, however, he began to find solace in the camaraderie of his colleagues and the knowledge that Alex's sacrifice had not been in vain. Laura spent much of her time visiting families affected by the war, offering comfort and support wherever she could. She found strength in connecting with others, sharing stories of loss and resilience. Her bond with Jack grew stronger during this time, their shared experiences forging a deeper understanding between them. Together, they worked to ensure that humanity would never forget the lessons of the war, that pride and arrogance could lead to ruin, but humility and perseverance could pave the way to survival. As for Jack, he took on a leadership role in the newly formed Galactic Defense Initiative, an organization dedicated to protecting Earth and its colonies from future threats. He knew that the Krylos might not be the last enemy humanity would face, but he also knew that they were better prepared now than ever before. Under his guidance, the initiative focused on fostering cooperation among nations, advancing technology responsibly, and promoting peace wherever possible. Months passed, and the wounds of war began to heal. Cities were rebuilt, families reunited, and dreams rekindled. The scars remained, visible reminders of the suffering endured, but they also served as a testament to humanity's strength and resilience. People looked to the stars not with fear but with hope. Hope for a brighter future, free from the shadow of conflict. One evening, Jack stood on a hill overlooking the rebuilt city of New York. The skyline sparkled with lights, a stark contrast to the darkness that had once consumed it. Laura joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "It's beautiful," she said, gazing at the horizon. "Almost hard to believe how far we've come." Jack smiled faintly. "We've been through hell, but we made it. That's something to be proud of." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars twinkle above. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Krylos Empire drifted aimlessly, their threat neutralized but not forgotten. Humanity had proven that it could overcome even the most daunting challenges, but Jack knew that true peace required vigilance, wisdom, and compassion. "We've earned this moment," Laura said finally, "but we can't stop here. There's still so much to do." Jack nodded. "Yeah, but for tonight, let's just enjoy it." And so they did, finding solace in the quiet beauty of the night sky. The war had changed them all, leaving indelible marks on their hearts and minds. But it had also taught them the value of courage, teamwork, and sacrifice. As they looked toward the future, they carried with them the memories of those who had given everything, and the promise that their legacy would live on. Humanity had suffered greatly, but it had also endured. In the end, that was what mattered most.